Anunnaki, Mesopotamia, and Human Creation. An analysis of clay tablets, the lost worldview of Mesopotamia, the civilizations that flourished in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, Sumer, 3500, 1800 BC, Akkad, 2340–125 BC, Babylon, 2000–1000 BC, and Assyria, 1176–12 BC, left behind an extraordinary legacy recorded on thousands of clay tablets. Rediscovered and deciphered in the 19th century, these cuneiform texts revealed a complex and deeply influential worldview that remained unknown for millennia. The strategic importance of re-examining these ancient sources goes beyond the simple cataloging of myths. It demands a critical analysis that considers them as possible records of real events, transmitted through a symbolic language that still challenges our understanding today. This document adopts an investigative premise to analyze narratives such as the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, under the hypothesis that they describe literal truths. This approach offers a perspective radically different from that of official science, which often dismisses such stories as mere allegories or primitive folklore. By treating the texts as testimonies, we open the possibility of unveiling a hidden history of our own origins. Throughout this analysis, we will explore fundamental questions that emerge from these clay tablets. What is the true origin of the gods known as the Anunnaki? Under what circumstances and for what purpose was humanity created? How does the complex divine morality, marked by conflicts and deicide, define the nature of good and evil? And finally, what is the identity of the enigmatic celestial body called Nibiru, the alleged abode of these beings? To answer these questions, we must begin where the Babylonians themselves began, with the story of the creation of the cosmos and the divine war that preceded the arrival of the gods on earth. The divine cosmogony, war in heaven. According to the Enuma Elish, to understand the role of the Anunnaki on earth, it is fundamental to analyze their own origin story, a cosmic drama of creation, rebellion, and usurpation of power. The Enuma Elish is not just a creation myth, it is the chronicle of a celestial civil war that redefined the order of the universe and established the lineage of gods that would come to govern humanity. The genesis of the divine pantheon begins with the primordial entities Tiamat, the mother of all, and Apsu, her consort and primordial father. From their energetic union emerged a personified power of creation called Mumu. Successive generations of gods arose, culminating in key figures such as the sky god Anu and his sons, Enlil, lord of the storm, and Enki, lord of the earth, from whom descended the race of gods known as the Anunnaki. The central conflict that triggered the divine war arose from the turbulent behavior of the younger gods, which disturbed Apsu's peace. Unable to calm them, and under the advice of his vizier Mumu, Apsu conceived a drastic plan to exterminate his own offspring to restore order. In contrast to her consort's fury, Tiamat initially showed herself to be tolerant, wishing to discipline her children benevolently. Upon discovering the plan, Enki acted decisively. Using spells, he put Apsu to sleep, stripped his grandfather of his symbols of power, and killed him. With this act of deicide, Enki established his own dominion over Apsu, effectively hijacking a portion of the energy of creation. It was in this new realm that his son Marduk was born, a god of exceptional power, born with 4 eyes and 4 ears, a sign of his superior wisdom and vigilance. Marduk's rise culminated in a final confrontation with Tiamat. Provoked by the gods and accused of passivity, the primordial mother finally prepared for war, creating an army of 11 types of monsters led by her new consort, Kingu. After the hesitation of other gods, Marduk accepted the challenge to face his grandmother. The battle ended with the defeat and dismemberment of Tiamat. The profound meaning of this event transcends military victory. The death of the primordial creators could not be literal, as that would mean the suicide of the Anunnaki themselves. Instead, the act represents a cosmic coup d'etat, a declaration of heretical independence. The Anunnaki turned their backs on their creators, declaring them dead and establishing a separate enclave in the universe, where they would live as if they were alone. This cosmic rebellion and the murder of the divine progenitors cast a shadow of moral ambiguity over the Anunnaki, a complexity that defines their subsequent relationship with humanity. A reevaluation of good and evil in the Anunnaki Pantheon. History, as they say, is written by the victors. The Mesopotamian texts, when read critically, reveal that good and evil are described from the subjectively inverted view of Marduk's worshippers, a view that has been uncritically adopted by ethnologists and theologians. This perspective may, in fact, conceal a darker truth, where the traditional heroes are the true villains. The central question that emerges is, who were the bad guys in the divine war? The texts mention Apsu's evil plans to exterminate his descendants, but his motivation was to restore order and peace. Tiamat, in turn, only prepared for battle to defend herself and protect her creation. In contrast, it was Enki and Marduk who committed acts of deicide, murdering their own grandparents to seize power. Faction actions and motivations. Apsu and Tiamat, creators. Apsu planned to exterminate his descendants to restore order and peace. Tiamat, initially tolerant, was provoked to fight to defend herself and her creation. Enki and Marduk, rebels. Enki murdered his grandfather, Apsu, to seize power. Marduk killed his grandmother, Tiamat, and became the principal god of Babylon. This moral duality is personified in the figures of Enlil and Enki, the two gods who assumed control of Earth. Enlil is described as the Lord of Wrath, a god who despises the human race, whom he considers mere animals. In opposition, Enki is the Lord of Knowledge and the Serpent of Wisdom. Although friendly to humans to the point of transgressing divine prohibitions to reveal secrets to them, he was the architect of the first deicide. Author Anton Parks offers an alternative view of the family relationship between them, suggesting that Enlil may have been Enki's son, not his brother, a deception orchestrated to make Enlil appear equal in power. This theory is uncertain, and the confusion is deepened by another text that mentions Enlil as Enki's father, highlighting the deliberately obscure and unreliable nature of the official records. Regardless of their lineage, the conflicting motivations and ambiguous character of these gods directly shaped the purpose and destiny of their greatest and most controversial creation, humanity. The creation of humanity, slaves for the gods. The Sumerian narrative of human creation has a profound impact on our self-understanding. It redefines humanity not as the pinnacle of divine creation, but as a product of genetic engineering with an explicitly servile purpose. We were designed to be a race of slaves, created to relieve the gods of their own heavy labor. In the Enuma Elish, after his victory, Marduk declares his plan: I will form blood and cause bones to be. Then I will make a human being, his name shall be man. Upon him shall be imposed the service of the gods so that they may rest. To do this, he utilized the blood and bones of the defeated god Kingu, the leader of Tiamat's army. The Atrahasis text details the context of this decision. Human creation was a direct response to a rebellion by the lower group of gods, the Igigi. After 40 years of forced labor digging canals, the Igigi revolted, burned their tools, and threatened Enlil. It was then that Enki proposed a solution: to manufacture a substitute worker, the Lulu, or primitive man. The process was a form of genetic engineering. Led by the birth goddess Nintu Tashmami, the gods mixed clay with the blood and flesh of a slaughtered god. The first experiments, as described in the text Enki and Enigma, were grotesque failures, resulting in beings with physical defects: a man who could not use his arms, another with paralyzed feet, a sterile woman, and an asexual creature. Only after several attempts was the process perfected, and the gods obtained their workforce. Although the texts mention agriculture, Theorists like Zecharia Sitchin and Michael Tellinger argue that the primary labor imposed on humans was gold mining. This gold, according to them, was necessary to repair the atmosphere of the Anunnaki home planet, possibly by spreading it as dust to create a thermal insulation effect. The creation of an obedient workforce, however, did not solve all the gods' problems. The growing number and noise of humanity would soon awaken Enlil's wrath, leading to a plan for mass extermination. The Great Flood, Punishment and Salvation. The story of the Great Flood, present in cultures around the world, takes on a particularly revealing character in Mesopotamian texts. Here, it is not a natural disaster, but a deliberate act that exposes the deep division among the Anunnaki gods regarding the fate of humanity. The Atrahasis myth recounts that Enlil, irritated because humans had become too numerous and noisy, decided to eradicate them with a cataclysmic flood. He imposed an oath of silence on the other gods, forbidding Enki from warning his creation. Enki, however, found an ingenious way to circumvent the order. Instead of speaking directly to a mortal, Enki spoke to a reed wall, knowing that Atrahasis, Utnapishtim or Ziusudra in other versions, was on the other side and would hear. He instructed him to build a boat and save his family and the animals, a reference that can be interpreted as DNA samples rather than pairs of living creatures. The aftermath of the flood was chaotic. The gods, deprived of the sacrifices that sustained them, were starving. The Great Mother Goddess lamented the destruction bitterly, and Enlil was furious to discover that mortals had survived. These details portray the gods not as omnipotent beings, but as flawed and dependent managers. It was Enki who intervened, convincing Enlil that total extermination was ineffective. Instead, the gods conceived a better plan to control the human population. The following measures were imposed. A female demon named Pasitu was created to kill newborn children. The human birth canal was narrowed, increasing mortality during childbirth. Taboos of celibacy were instituted, and many women were designated for a monastic life. This grim narrative demonstrates that, for the gods, humanity's survival was not a matter of mercy, but of utility. The question now turns to the origin and abode of these powerful and capricious beings. The enigma of Nibiru. The enigma of Nibiru. Planet, moon, or space station. Identifying Nibiru is fundamental to deciphering the nature of the Anunnaki. Understanding their abode is essential to unraveling their technology, their motivations, and their possible continued influence over Earth. The Enuma Elish offers enigmatic clues, the translations of which vary, fueling a debate that has lasted for decades. The direct descriptions of Nibiru in the epic are ambiguous. Its main characteristics include: it is explicitly called the Star of Marduk. It holds the crossing or the place of crossing between heaven and earth. It controls the middle of the sea, a symbolic reference to Tiamat or space. It shepherds the other gods' stars like sheep, keeping their courses. It is described as shining. The related Hebrew word halal means the shining one or light bringer, and is the word translated into Latin as Lucifer. Zecharia Sitchin popularized the theory that Nibiru is a 12th planet in an elliptical 3,000 to 600-year orbit. However, his research is criticized for omitting crucial information, such as the deicide of Apsu, and for rarely citing his sources. Sitchin also proposed a cosmic collision theory, interpreting the mythical battle as a literal event, the collision between the planet Nibiru, or one of its moons, and an ancient planet, Tiamat. According to this theory, half of Tiamat was pulverized to form the asteroid belt, while the other half was pushed into a new orbit to become Earth, Ishara. Beyond the planetary hypothesis, other possibilities arise from a close reading of the sources, the moon as Nibiru. One theory postulates that our moon is a hollow, artificial planetoid functioning as a massive spaceship or base of operations. A space station, Nibiru could be a floating station that, like a sentinel, monitors and controls access to our planet. Jupiter. Being the planet associated with Marduk, Jupiter could be Nibiru, watching over the region of the asteroid belt, the remains of the middle of Tiamat. Regardless of its location or physical form, the nature of the Anunnaki themselves, its inhabitants, is even more intriguing and revealing than their abode. The nature of the Anunnaki: physiology, power, and sustenance. The physical and metaphysical characteristics of the Anunnaki, as inferred from the texts, help explain their ability to dominate Earth, manipulate life, and live for extraordinarily long periods. Speculations about their appearance suggest reptilian or amphibious features, as evidenced by figures like the Apkallu, amphibious sages, and the fish god Oannes. The possibility of having 6 fingers is raised as an explanation for the Mesopotamian sexagesimal base 60 numeral system. Their extraordinarily long lives, documented in the Sumerian king list, are a point of controversy, with the time unit Shar being interpreted in various ways, resulting in reigns ranging from plausible to impossibly long. A central theory for understanding their power is that the Anunnaki are multidimensional beings. While humans perceive only 3 dimensions, the Anunnaki would have access to others, granting them abilities and technologies unimaginable to us, such as space travel and the ability to inhabit inhospitable planets. Perhaps the most disturbing theory concerns their sustenance. By having separated themselves from the primordial creator, the Anunnaki do not feed on the energy of divine light. Instead, they nourish themselves indirectly, absorbing the vital energies of other beings. Specifically, they feed on the energies released by humans during violent death and intense negative emotions, such as fear, hate, and anger. Our emotional excrement is their food source. This theory connects directly to the purpose of sacrifices. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes a revealing scene after the flood where the gods gathered like flies over the sacrifice, attracted by the vital energy released. This also sheds new light on the biblical prohibition of consuming blood, Leviticus 3:17. The prohibition was not a matter of purity, but a mechanism to reserve this energy source exclusively for the gods. The blood was for them, and the meat for the humans. This dark view of origins fundamentally redefines humanity's legacy and the hidden purpose behind our existence. The hidden legacy in our origins. When Mesopotamian mythologies are interpreted not as fables, but as veiled historical records, a disturbing and radical narrative regarding human origin emerges. This perspective suggests that humanity is not the result of blind evolution or an act of divine love, but rather a genetic engineering project, conceived by warring extraterrestrial factions to serve as a slave race. This analysis has revisited the fundamental conflicts that, according to the clay tablets, defined our destiny. The Anunnaki rebellion against their creators, an act of deicide that separated them from the divine source, established their predatory nature. The subsequent rivalry between the tyrannical Enlil and the cunning Enki sealed humanity's fate as a pawn in a cosmic game. The creation, subjugation, and attempted extermination of humanity were all motivated by the needs and whims of these gods. Reflecting on this hidden legacy fundamentally alters our understanding of history, religion, and human potential. If we were created to serve, then perhaps our innate yearning for freedom is not just a philosophical ideal, but a genetic echo of a rebellion against our creators. The most important truths about who we are may not lie in our future, but buried beneath the sands of time, waiting to be rediscovered in our oldest myths. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support us, and become a member to get exclusive access to audio versions of our material. It helps us a lot. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss any content. Until next time.